Lalo THR here. What's going down, everybody? I hope you're doing fantastic. Early morning here, 6 a.m. as of this record, and I just had to get this content out because this is a big weekend for boxing, and in fact, this is a big year-end boxing blowout because we have one of the best cards assembled in a long time here with Turkey Al Sheikh's Riyadh season, Benavidez, Yard. We have Brian Norman Jr., Devin Haney, and as well as Bam Rodriguez and Puma Martinez. And this will be the opportunity for Bam to become a champion in another division. And obviously, there's also two other good fights on the card as well. I'm not going to talk about those. Abdullah Mason, he's going to handle business. That kid, he's a very bright future star. I want to go ahead and start off with Bam and Puma. I'm picking Bam. There's no other way about it. Puma's an undefeated Argentine fighter. Very, very, very good fighter. Bam is just going back to back, man, with tough fights. You know, Bam is on a similar run as Virgil Ortiz right now, just going back to back to back with a bunch of tough fighters. But the difference is that these fights are for championships. Unlike Virgil, where he's not even fighting for a title, but yet the fighters that he's beaten are way tougher opponents than the current champs in his division. Bam Martinez, though, he's like a little Thanos collecting title belts. And God, man, I just wish Bam Rodriguez was bigger, bro. I wish he was a welterweight right now. At least that could eventually move up to middleweight, because unfortunately the division he's in, 115, bro. 115. Like, that's a division that doesn't get any attention. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, if you haven't seen this kid fight, you are missing out. Like, this kid, and anybody listening, if this is going to be your first BAM experience, you're in for a treat. This kid is special. And I mean that, you know, we kind of throw around these words so casually today. Like, oh yeah, you know, this dude, he's a special talent. But like, no, when I say Bam is special, he's generational. He's a fighter that comes once in a long while. He's a very, very good boxer, man. So technically gifted. His instincts, his movement, you know. I've never seen a Mexican-American fighter with the kind of movement that this kid has. You know, that dynamic footwork and combined speed and power and technique. You know, this is a very special talent that we're witnessing. You know, the kid's only, 24, 25? He wants to retire at 30 years old. He just had a kid. He just had a baby. So, you know, I could kind of understand retirement talks already. You know, having kids changes you, but man, it's gonna be sad when this kid retires in 4 or 5 years. Because he strikes me as the kind of cat that when he says he's gonna do something, he does it. He's not just saying shit just to say it. You feel me? But yeah, for Bam and Puma, of course, I'm rolling with Bam. Wouldn't have it any other way. But a special talent. And obviously, there's a big fight looming for this kid if he can make 125. You know, 120, 125. I know jumping up 5-10 pounds is a tall order. But if he can, this kid could eventually have a mega showdown with Naoya Inoue, the Japanese phenom. And you know, if that happens, I'm picking Bam to win that fight. You know, everybody right now is talking about Espinosa versus Inoue. That's another one that maybe I'm biased, okay? Maybe I'm biased. Being a Mexican American, maybe I'm biased. I'm also leaning towards Espinosa as well to beat Inoue. I just think Japanese fighters, as great as they are, and obviously Inoue is a generational talent. I feel like Mexico is like their kryptonite, bro. Like Mexican fighters, whenever they have big fights with Japanese fighters, the Mexican fighter almost always wins. And it's the same thing in soccer too. Like the Japanese national team and the Mexican national team. The Mexican national team always beats Japan. Like even right now, the Japanese squad is way better than the Mexican squad right now. Like they have way more talent and capability, and yet the last friendly, Mexico didn't win, but it was a draw, I believe. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something about Mexico and Japan. They're like very close too. Like the Japanese people love Mexican culture and vice versa, But I don't know, man. I'm leaning towards both Espinosa and Bam in a potential fight against Inoue. Especially Bam. The Espinosa fight with Inoue, that one is a kind of a, I want to say a 55-45 for me in terms of me leaning towards Espinosa, because at the same time I could see Inoue overwhelm Espinosa with his speed, because Espinosa gets hit a lot. Actually, he gets hit a little too much, but man, he has that quintessential Mexican style, entertaining fighter, goes forward and just is a whirlwind, man. He's a tall, lengthy cat, could fight on the inside and just breaks you down physically and spiritually, with his constant pressure. It just overwhelms his opponent. So nonetheless, those are some exciting potential fights that could happen. But yeah, Bam over Puma. And then moving on, what many people are calling the true main event of this card, Devin Haney versus Brian Norman. Now, Brian Norman, he really got famous, if you will, off of that knockout over a Japanese fighter. Knocked the hell out of that boy. I was legitimately worried for the Japanese fighter that he knocked out. It's one of the craziest knockouts I've seen in a long time. Brian Norman has got some pop, needless to say. That's a dude with crazy power, and it makes you think, Ryan Garcia was able to drop Haney and hurt Haney. Of course, he didn't knock him out, but he hurt him when they fought. It makes you think Brian Norman probably hits like 5 or 10 times harder than Ryan Garcia. So what's going to happen if Brian Norman lands one of the same punches that Brian landed that caused Devin Haney to meet the canvas? It's a fight that's very polarizing. Like a lot of people are picking Norman, but a lot of people are picking Haney. I'm gonna roll with Haney, and I hate myself for saying that. I'm not a big Devin Haney guy at all, to be honest with you. Him and his dad kind of get on my nerves, but I gotta pick Haney because I feel like he has more experience, and he's also a little bit more skilled, and with his boxing. I think Haney's the type of cat that he doesn't care if he bores the audience. He doesn't care if the entire arena boos because of the boredom. He just is there to do his job, as he should, and he's there to just win the fight. He doesn't care about putting on a show, making entertainment, making a legacy, becoming a fighter with a beloved reputation. He doesn't give a shit about any of that. So those are the most dangerous fighters right there. The ones who don't care about the crowd, who don't care about putting on a pleasing fight. They're just literally there to get their paycheck, and they want to get a good result, obviously, as every fighter should. I think Devin Haney is gonna win this fight. It's gonna be a stinker. Haney's gonna, Shakur Stevenson style. He's not gonna engage. He's gonna. And I know Shakur did have a good outing against William Zepeda the last time out. I'll give him that one. But Haney, I'm predicting a win for him, a UD, and as long as he stays away, and doesn't allow himself to get caught I think he wins this fight. David Benavidez, Anthony Yarde, the main event of this card. Yarde is a very, very dangerous opponent. It's not a foregone. I am picking Benavidez. Let's just cut right to the chase, because I want to talk about Canelo Crawford 2 just announced. And also Virgil Boots. I want to talk more about that as well. But David Benavidez, I'm picking him to win this fight, but it is not a foregone conclusion, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Yarde, he could spark David. He's got that kind of power. David Benavidez, people are making a big deal that he hasn't knocked anybody out at 175 thus far. They're like, it proves he was a weight bully because, he was knocking out all kind of fools at 168 or whatever. Now at 175, he can't crack nobody. But my thing is David Benavidez he's never been like, he's a hard puncher. Don't get me wrong, but he's not like a KO artist. He's not a one-hitter quitter. There's a difference in types of power that people have in their hands. You have those people that can KO you with a single punch, like a Mike Tyson type. There used to be a cat named Rocky Juarez back in the day. That vato used to knock out all kind of dudes with one hook. But then you have fighters that are accumulative. Like they have hard, heavy hands, but they don't knock you out with one punch. They knock you out by volume, by landing multiple shots, because they have such strong stamina. Guys like Antonio Margarito, or the modern day version of Antonio Margarito, the Gen Z Margarito, Sebastian Fundora. Just volume, landing so many punches that it wears you down, and ultimately you give up. Your body's just like, I can't take this shit no more. Which in my opinion, that's actually worse. That type of power is actually worse, because that's not really power. That's just somebody getting beaten down into submission, which is worse than just getting knocked out with one punch. You're awake one moment, and then the next moment you're asleep. And you wake up and hear the mariachi music playing. Like that's I'd rather have that. Like, if I'm a fighter and I'm gonna lose a fight by a KO or TKO, I'd rather get KO'd. I'd rather just get one. My opponent lands a lucky ass punch and bam, I'm out. I'd rather get that than get absolutely beat on for 8-9 rounds, just getting the life beat out of me. Those are the fights that could actually alter one's career and cut it short. Ask Meldrick Taylor. You know what I mean? The famous Meldrick Taylor Chavez fight that people seem to think is controversial. Bunch of idiots think that stoppage was controversial when Richard Steele waved that off. It's absolutely insane. I don't know what kind of crack some people are smoking to think that. But anyway, so David Benavidez, he's a volume puncher, man. He's an accumulative knockout guy. He's not a one-hitter quitter, never has been. I'm sure maybe he has gotten a few KOs like that. Some fighters just don't have a chin, but like he wears you down. That's why they call him the Mexican Monster, and he has that quintessential Mexican style where he wears you down, with accumulation. So I wouldn't read too much into, he hasn't gotten so many KOs and so it proves he's a weight bully. I wouldn't read too much into that, but it remains to be seen what happens against Yarde. I'm picking Benavidez to win. I can't decide if I want to pick a stoppage or a decision. I can't decide, because these are both tough fighters. I feel like Benavidez really wants to make some noise, man, because this guy, after Canelo's loss, and we'll get more on him and Crawford later, because apparently there's going to be a rematch. But Ever since Canelo's loss, boxing is now looking for the next big star, especially a new big Mexican or Mexican American star, because the Mexican boxing audience is such a powerful market in boxing. That's what people need to understand. It's a very powerful market in boxing. The majority of people that, well, I don't want to say the majority, but a good chunk of the pay-per-views being purchased and the tickets to the events being purchased are by Mexican fans, whether Mexican nationals or Mexican Americans. But we're keeping the sport floating financially. Let's just put it that way, okay? So it's very crucial to have a big Mexican or Mexican American star in the sport. The Cinco de Mayo, Mexican Independence Day fight, Cinco de Mayo in May 5th, obviously, and then in September, the Mexican Independence Day. Those are, huge dates that, it's become a very marketable and very profitable, very lucrative time for boxing, those 2 dates. So it's very crucial that we find another one. And Benavidez, he could be the one to step up. And in fact, I get the sense that his father is very much so aware of this, because during the press conference, the final one leading up to this card, Benavidez's dad, he was talking a lot of noise, like saying, "Oh, we're doing this for Mexico. Vamos a representar a Mexico," and this and that. And they're in Saudi Arabia, and I guess there's I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're in Saudi Arabia. I'm assuming they were. And so you heard some of the Saudis like cheering for that. It's funny. Or unless they could have been Mexican fans that traveled, because we travel everywhere for our fighters and for our national team. And it's a very, very powerful fan base, man. That's the way I describe it. But yeah, when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, see, he's smart. He knows that boxing right now needs a new Mexican star. So he's really trying to play that angle right now. And I dig it. I like Benavidez, but at the same time, I don't like him. I'm in the middle with him, man. Like, I like him because he is an entertaining fighter. But I kind of dislike him because he talks a lot of shit to his opponents. He's kind of disrespectful to his opponents. People describe him as to having a mean streak, but I don't describe it that way. I describe him more like a fighter who just starts shit because that helps him in the fight. And I could understand that angle if it, talking shit to your opponents pumps you up and stuff. Like I saw that a lot in the Caleb Plant fight. Like, Benavidez was just talking all kind of shit to Caleb Plant, and I kept thinking to myself, like, bro, what did Caleb do to you exactly? Like, I know y'all are gonna fight, but like, you don't gotta talk this kind of shit, bro. Like, I don't know, that shit looked very unprofessional to me. It looked kind of tacky, and that's what made me kind of lose some of my fandom for Benavidez, because that shit was just tacky to talk that kind of shit. That's I was actually gonna tweet. I've been wanting to tweet, like, I wish the racial draft from Dave Chappelle's show, I wish that shit was real, and on behalf of the Mexican American delegation, I would like to propose a trade to the African American community. We'll give you David Benavidez if you give us Boots, because I like Boots. Boots is, he's respectful, but he holds it down in the ring. That man could go. He could fight. He's entertaining. He's respectful. Like, bro, he's an honorary Mexican in my book. Boots is very, very good and likable. David Benavidez, not so much. That vato talks a lot of shit, man. He talks a lot of shit. Now, granted, he backs it up in the ring, so he kind of gets a pass because he does back it up in the ring. But that's just me. That's just my take. I am a fan of Benavidez, but also at the same time, I kind of low-key don't like him, and that's just me. Now, speaking of not liking something, Canelo Crawford 2 is reportedly in talks, and the negotiations are actually going very strong currently That has been reported by several boxing news outlets on Twitter. And my first knee-jerk reaction is, why? And I say why, knowing already the answer to that question. It's the money bags. But the main thing is, bro, Canelo, you can't hurt Crawford. Like, you know, listen, let me say this. And every time I say this, people, you know, will comment, oh, you don't know shit about boxing, or oh, you know, what the fuck were you watching, and you need to get your eyes checked, blah blah blah. You could say whatever you want, but the official judges agreed with me in that the fight was a lot closer than what people made it out to be. It was a lot closer. It was a split decision, dog. It was a lot closer. Canelo Crawford was a lot more competitive than what the boxing public have made it out to be. Both the fans and the pundits too. Not just the dumbass fans that don't know shit, but even the pundits as well. They have really made this fight seem like if Crawford, I mean, the way people describe Canelo Crawford, and I tweeted this already too, it's funny, man. The way people describe this fight, if you didn't watch the fight, if you did not watch Canelo Crawford fight, and you just read comments online, you would think that Crawford dropped Canelo like fucking 5 times leading up to an eventual stoppage. Like, you would think it was a fucking Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder level ass whooping. Okay, you would think Canelo got mollywopped from pillar to post. That vato got dropped out of the ring. He got knocked out of the ring. You know what I'm saying? He had a fucking, 2 black eyes, a busted lip. He needed facial reconstruction surgery. I mean, Crawford whooped him so bad. His, Canelo's red hair turned black. I mean, you would think if you just read the comments, but that's just not the case. That's not how the fight went. Canelo won some of the early rounds, and there was a lot of swing rounds that could have gone either way. I personally, I highly favor fighters on their front foot. Now, that's not to say that Crawford was on his back foot the whole fight, but Canelo did just enough to win some of the early rounds. But the second half of the fight, I want to say from pretty much really from round 5 and on, Crawford ran away with the fight, man. He was just outboxing, outlanding. He was just too quick for Canelo. That's the main story of the fight, is Crawford was just too fast for Canelo. And for every one clean punch that Canelo landed, Crawford would land 2 or 3. That was one of those type of fights. But one of the major things that caught my attention early on too is that for the punches that Canelo did land, Crawford showed no effect to those punches. And that's a big problem, because you're fighting a career welterweight, which, I mean, I don't take too much stock into that, because I'm starting to believe Bomac when he said that this is the weight that Crawford should have been fighting at all this time. And I believe it now to a degree, because, I mean, come on, how do you not get hurt by some of those punches if you're a natural welterweight? Well, because you're not a natural welterweight. Now, if this fight happens, the question becomes, so is this Canelo cashing out? Is this the last fight of his career? This is gonna be it. This is gonna be his final hurrah, a rematch with Crawford to get the money bags. He's not gonna win. Let me just say that right now. Canelo's not gonna win a rematch with Crawford. In fact, I think Crawford. Let me say this, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I'm gonna say it. I think Crawford could have knocked Canelo out, dog. I think he could have stopped him if he would have went to the body more, because Canelo looked very, very uncomfortable towards the end of that fight, and he was starting to get hit way too clean, and he he looked more bothered by Crawford's punches than Crawford looked bothered by Canelo's punches. Now, granted, Canelo didn't land nowhere near as many punches on Crawford as Crawford landed on him, or at least not. Let me reclaim that, because the punch stats will tell you otherwise. Actually, the punch stats are pretty close, but what I mean is, Canelo didn't land as many clean punches, like KO potential type punches, than Crawford. I think Crawford has the edge in that, and Canelo looked way more bothered by Crawford's punches than the other way around. So, what I was watching, the look of discouragement on Canelo's body language and face, if Crawford just went to the body more, if he committed to the body more, dare I say it, I really feel like Crawford could have stopped Canelo, bro, or knock him, he could have hurt him. I'm just gonna say that. Now, in the rematch, I don't think it would be smart for Crawford to try to go for a KO, because then he himself could end up getting KO'd in the process of trying that. But I think he should commit to the body more, and he could hurt. The first fight has told me that Crawford could hurt Canelo if he really wants to. He could hurt him. He needs to go to the body more, because Canelo looked very, very bothered and discouraged by the end of that fight last September. Now, on the flip side, Canelo, what does he have to do to win this fight? There's really nothing he can do, just because he's not quick enough. This isn't Canelo from 4 years ago. If this was 2018, 19, 2020 Canelo, pandemic era Canelo, and before, then yeah, I would say Canelo could absolutely win this fight. He just needs to put more punches together, more combos. He needs to use his jab and be quick with it, and pressure Crawford, make him uncomfortable. But Canelo himself said in the post-fight interview that he just can't do that anymore. He said it. He literally said, "Oh, my mind wanted to do things, my body could not." So it's like, fool, why are we gonna pay for a rematch? You literally said that you can't beat Crawford, dog. Because how are you gonna beat him if your body can't do shit that your mind wants it to do? Like, how are y'all even gonna sell this rematch? I mean, they're gonna sell it. It's gonna be successful, of course, because Canelo is still a huge draw. I highly doubt his drawing power has taken a huge hit because of this loss. Because it didn't affect him when he lost to Bivol, and obviously, very obviously, it didn't affect him when he lost to Mayweather, when he was fucking 22 years old. So this is gonna be a successful fight, but it's gonna go pretty much the same. Is my inkling anyway. That's my first initial thought. We'll see if I see some crazy training videos of him, and he's on some Rocky Balboa type shit. Maybe he ditches Eddie Reynoso and hires Robert Garcia or something like that. Then maybe I'll be like, okay, this is getting interesting. But in the end, if a man is telling you that his mind wanted to do stuff that his body simply couldn't do, he's done. He's finished. There's literally no point in this fight other than these gentlemen just reaping the rewards of massive Saudi money bags, and that's all there is to it. I would have rather seen Canelo come back and face, what's that kid's name? He's a Pakistani fighter, I want to say, Muslim cat that Turki Al-Ashi has a boner for. What's his name? Hamza Shiraz. I think that would have been interesting, or a fight with Canelo and the winner of Mbili Martinez 2, although we found out that that's not even going to happen. There's actually rumors of Mbili taking on Jaime Munguia, which is Very, very interesting. That could be just as entertaining, if not more so, than the fight he had with Martinez. But nonetheless, I mean, those are just some off the top of my head type of ideas. There's a lot of fights for Canelo, man. He could have fought, Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank Jr., one of those cats. Yeah, he just had a fight recently. I don't even remember who won that fight. I don't care. I'm not a fan of British boxing. The British boxers, they just have such an underwhelming style of fighting to me. I really don't care about the British boxing scene. But the point is, Canelo could have fought a lot of different opponents. And it's a shame that he's just going to waste one of two fights that he has left with Turkey. He's going to waste it on a Crawford rematch just to get beat again. Like, fool, you said it yourself. Your body can't do anymore what your mind wanted it to do. So I don't know what you're gonna convince us that you're gonna do differently now. Let's move on. One last thing I want to talk about before I end this clip. Wow, we're already going into 31 minutes. Real quickly, let's talk about Boots and Virgil one last time again, because everybody's calling Virgil a duck. Everybody and their mom is calling Virgil a duck because Virgil's promotional outfit are insisting that there are other fights on the table for Virgil, and Virgil himself has stated on video that his dream fight is with Spence. If it were up to him, Spence was next. Then in another video, he's on camera saying, hey, actually, if it were really up to me, I would fight Boots next. But I don't take it back either what I said about Spence. He is a dream fight for me, but yeah, I would fight Boots next if I can, but it's not really up to me. That's what he said in no uncertain terms, paraphrasing there. But what Golden Boy is doing with Virgil is what boxing promoters have done for hundreds of years, dog. That's literally what promoters do. And the fact that people online are acting like this is unprecedented, like, oh my god, Virgil and his team are cowards, they're gonna have other fights instead of fighting Boots. Listen, I am just as upset as you guys. Believe me, I would rather Ortiz fight Boots, and if I could make that happen, I would make that happen myself. I wish, I could just snap my fingers and this fight is made. Like, I could just, fuck with reality like that. Manipulate reality. But unfortunately, I can't, and this fight is most likely not gonna happen because these promoters, they're, like I said in the last clip I made, they're gonna be playing hard to get because they're trying to lure out Turkey. They're trying to lure out more money bags. And this is what boxing promoters have done for centuries. It's not brand new. I don't know why people are acting like this is, oh my god. They're just being haters to Virgil. That's really the narrative, is that he's the one ducking, that it's his team and him that don't really want that smoke. And it's just funny to me because what Golden Boy is doing is literally what boxing promoters do. They're trying to make this fight bigger than what it is. They're gonna try to marinate it, and I don't like it. I'm not excusing it. The only thing I'm saying is that this isn't brand new. This isn't something like, oh my god, wow, for the first time ever in boxing, two, perfectly matched fighters, they're not gonna fight. They're gonna instead opt for other opponents first. Like, oh my god, what the fuck? No, this has been going on for centuries, dog. That's literally what boxing promoters do. Obviously there's the Spence fight, which is ridiculous. I will lose respect for Virgil. If he fights Spence next. I don't know why people think that this fight would sell out Cowboy Stadium either. Like, Spence hasn't fought in 2 years. His last fight, he got his ass whooped beyond the word whooped. That's an understatement. Like, that fight literally retired him, dog. And he should stay retired. After the car wreck in 2019 or 2020, whenever that was, he was never to be the same again. And the fact that Virgil's even entertaining the idea of fighting this man, it has made me lose a little bit of respect for Virgil. Just a little bit. If he actually fights him, I'm going to lose a lot of bit of respect for him. Because, come on, bro. Really? Like, really? Fight Fundora then, bro. Or fight Xander Zayas. Don't fight Spence. Spence has no business fighting anybody, let alone an absolute monster like Virgil Ortiz. You know, at that point, if you're gonna fight Spence, just be like Jake Paul, dude, and fight a lightweight, fight some former MMA fighters, fight, you know, some bum off the street, bring back bum fights. If you know, you know. But like, come on. That's some other news too. Jake Paul apparently fighting Anthony Joshua. That is, you know, just going off on a tangent real quick. I'm just gonna say, the only thing I'm gonna say about this is, this fight is gonna confirm to us what we already knew, which is that Jake Paul fights are staged AF, because there is absolutely no universe or any simulation in the multiverse where Jake Paul beats Anthony Joshua. And as a matter of fact, if Anthony Joshua doesn't KO this bum in 2 rounds, I'm going to already start saying, okay, yeah, this is rigged. Maybe Anthony Joshua's gonna win, but they made an agreement to where he can't knock out Jake Paul, so Jake Paul could continue this bullshit circus act, you know. So Joshua better knock out this fraud in 2 rounds or else. But back to Virgil and Boots. You know, in a perfect world, these guys would fight next, but it's looking like it's not gonna happen. Let me just say one thing before I sign off here. Virgil Ortiz is not the type of cat to be afraid of anybody. Let me just get that out. He is not the type of cat to be afraid of anybody. Now, his bitch-ass promotional outfit, on the other hand, that's a different story. But the fact that people are now spinning this narrative that Oscar de la Hoya and Virgil's dad and his manager, Rick Merrigan, they're saying they don't believe in that. Okay, let me start over. Virgil haters are proclaiming that Virgil's promoter, Oscar de la Hoya, and his manager, Rick Merrigan, and his own father, you know, Virgil Ortiz Sr., and his trainer, Robert Garcia, that all of them do not believe that Virgil could beat Boots. And let me just say it right now, his father, you know, I could believe that maybe his father is trying to protect his son, because that's what fathers do. I could believe that. But as far as Oscar de la Hoya, Rick Merrigan, and Robert Garcia, that's not the case with any of them. Especially Oscar and Rick Merrigan, because, bro, promoters, they don't care. Even if that's true, even if they do feel that way, that, oh, nah, man, Virgil can't beat Boots, they don't care. They're still gonna have Virgil fight Boots because of the money is gonna be very lucrative for a fight with Virgil and Boots. So they don't care. Even if that's the case, that's not something that would prevent the fight from happening. Just because they don't believe he could win, that nah. They don't care about that. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, Oscar de la Hoya, stupid ass, he recently came out saying that for Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis, he recently came out saying, I knew Ryan was gonna lose that fight. I knew he couldn't win that fight because he wasn't even because of they had a catch weight agreement of some sort. They had a rehydration clause that put Ryan Garcia in a bad position because of the rehydration, and also he was like, yeah, and Ryan, you know, he wasn't really training that good and taking the fight serious. He's like, I knew he wasn't gonna win that fight. So that's evidence. That's example A That is evidence A that Oscar De La Hoya is not the type of promoter where he's gonna be like, oh, I know that Ryan can't beat Tank, so I'm not gonna have them fight. Motherfucker, he did have them fight, and obviously we saw that fight win. So that's not the case. A promoter doesn't care whether his fighter could win or not, because the money's gonna be lucrative. The money's gonna be there. That doesn't matter. But what the promoter does care about is squeezing as much juice out of that pulp as possible. You know what I'm saying? Right now, Oscar De La Hoya has a big ass lemon with Virgil Ortiz. He wants to make some lemonade, and he wants to squeeze as much juice out of that lemon as he can and make some bomb ass lemonade. So they're gonna have him fight, you know, probably Spence, probably Fundora, probably Zayas, and go from there. And then the fight with Boots, assuming that Boots also wins his upcoming fights, hopefully better fights than Lima, quite frankly, then a fight between those two would be massive. But they're stupid because the fight's already massive. They don't need to waste time fighting any of these cats. You know, these guys are in their prime. They're both, you know, young, hungry contenders. The time is now. Your time is up. My time is now. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it. I'm gonna sign off. Thank you very much for listening. For all 7 of you, thank you very much. Adios.